India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has reiterated that India would not be pressured into signing a trade deal. The development comes as India's negotiating team returns from Washington after holding discussions on an interim trade deal. Sources say, while agriculture and auto still remain key sectors of contention, a mini trade deal is still expected before the 9th of July reciprocal tariff deadline. Separately, India has also told the World Trade Organization that it would retaliate against the US tariffs on automobile imports levied in March this year. Remember, the US had imposed a 25% ad valorem tariff on import of auto parts and passenger vehicles from India in March.
National interest will always be supreme. वो ध्यान में रखते हुए अच्छा अगर डील बनती है तो भारत तो विकसित देशों के साथ डील करने के लिए कभी भी तैयार है। भारत कभी कोई ट्रेड डील डेडलाइन या समय सीमा के आधार पर कभी नहीं करता है। जब डील अच्छी बन जाए, पूरी तरीके से पक जाए और देश हित में हो, तब उसको हम स्वीकार करें। अभी तो कोई प्लान नहीं है, अब तो जल्दी पार्लियामेंट सेशन आने वाला है।
To discuss this, we're now joined by former Foreign Secretary Kanwal Sibal and former Indian Ambassador to the United States, Meera Shankar. Thank you very much for joining us. Ambassador Sibal, if I can begin with you, you've got Piyush Goyal now saying, and this is just a few days ahead of the 9 July deadline, that India never negotiates trade deals with a deadline in mind, but with national interest in mind. What does this mean? Are we close to a deal or not yet?
You know, it could mean two things. One is that there is some trouble ahead and we are not hopeful that we'll be able to sign a deal. The other is a general statement to the effect that we don't buckle under pressure and we don't abide by timelines drawn by others in order to say that we will not accept anything but a win-win deal. This is to reassure the public that India will not be conceding certain will not be making certain fundamental concessions which are against our interests, as, for example, on agriculture and dairy products. So you can interpret it both ways. On the one hand, it's a diplomatic statement saying that whatever is announced as an interim deal will be a win-win situation and India will not be yielding on its basic interests. Or it could mean that America is standing very firm with regard to dairy and agriculture and what have you. And I know that they are being very, very difficult and demanding and pressing. So it could also mean that at the last minute, some jockeying is taking place in terms of tussle of wills as to who bends first.
Right, that's an important point. Let me also go across to Ambassador Meera Shankar. Ambassador Meera Shankar, what we're picking up, and you know, you and Ambassador Sibal are familiar with so many of these negotiations in the past. We're getting to know from sources that we are close, but we're not there yet. There are differences on agriculture, there are differences on automobiles, which are yet to be resolved. Our chief negotiator is back in Delhi. Piyush Goyal has said he's not going back anytime soon. What does this really indicate about the state of things right now?
Well, it indicates perhaps that while both countries are keen to reach that sweet spot where they think that the deal is acceptable to both sides, they perhaps haven't reached it yet, and that the US is playing hardball, as they tend to do in trade negotiations. And India, which initially signaled a rather overeager attitude by giving unilateral concessions, has toughened its stance under US pressure to indicate that there are certain no-go areas, such as agriculture and dairy, where the social and political and economic costs for India will be not commensurate with the benefits that we will get, and will be very, very difficult for us because our agriculture, subsistence, farming, 2.5-acre farms, they can't compete with the huge, multinational corporations in the US. And since 50% of our population is self-employed in agriculture, then it's a sector which we can't really, open to vulnerability in a way which would create turmoil or lead to losses in this sector. So we are signaling our resolve. We've signaled that we are willing to do a deal and looking forward to having one which benefits both countries. That I don't think is the way that Trump is looking at the negotiations at present. He's been basically saying, I'm holding out this stick of tariffs, reciprocal tariffs. Now, if you open up, I won't use the stick. But then what is the benefit that we get, in terms of any additional access to the US market or even preferential access to the US market, even if tariffs are put? So I think these are questions which actually can't be rushed. Normally, trade deals take a long time because there are always winners and losers, and each side wants to see that they can maximize their gains while having losses which they can live with. And that takes time. See, so as a result, the US's negotiations with neither the EU, nor Japan, nor Mexico, nor Canada, nor Vietnam have at the moment fructified because these can't be rushed. No country will walk blindly into a trade deal which will not be seen as beneficial to it.
That's an important point. Let me go across to Ambassador Sibal. Ambassador Sibal, what we've also seen now that today at the WTO, India has proposed imposing retaliatory tariffs on select US products in response to Washington safeguard duties on automobile imports from India. Now, US had imposed a 25% ad valorem tariff on imports of passenger vehicles, light trucks, and also certain automobile parts. Why do you think India has chosen to do this at the juncture when we could be close to a deal?
Well, actually, this suggests a hardening of posture on our side. In effect, Trump's approach is that of a bully. He's hung this sword of democracies on the head of everyone by announcing July 9 as a liberation day for tariffs and forcing countries to bend to his will. And he continues to threaten, as I heard just now, that he's going to send out letters, 15 or 20 tomorrow and more later. At a certain point, you have then to stand up for your basic and fundamental interests, and you cannot sacrifice your future because Trump has this approach of forcing you to concede to his irrational demands. He's converting the tariff issue into the central issue of U.S. foreign policy, far ahead of geopolitics and the relationship with India, which has tremendous potential in so many areas. But he's willing to sacrifice that and create serious misunderstanding. Now, to come back to what you asked, in other circumstances, Trump has been threatening countries that who go to the WTO to file such complaints, that he will retaliate against them even more. He takes this as a kind of a personal challenge to him. The fact that we have decided to do so means that we are willing to call his bluff and are willing to protect our interests and send a signal that we are hardening our position and that we'll not entirely bend to his will. The fact is that from the statements that one has been hearing from Besant as well as from Lutnick, the American demands on us with regard to the market opening and tariffs is very harsh and very unacceptable from many points of view. And they keep on hammering away at it. And Lutnick, in his address to the Lycina dialogue, actually said that India has to open up its agriculture. I mean, it's a demand which America will not resile from, irrespective of all the very good arguments that we have, that we cannot open our agriculture sector. And Meera Shankar has just outlined what those concerns are. So let's see what happens on July 9. The fact of the matter is that whatever he does, that 10% tariff will remain. He has also impose that 10% tariff on the UK despite this interim deal. But last point is this, that what we are looking at not as an FTA, because that will take a long time. And we've asked
Any
ourselves
trade
that
deal.
this is an interim deal and that, we will sign something when Trump comes in October for the Quad summit, by which time we'll have a bigger deal. But it will not be an FTA as such with the United States. No, it will
Absolutely.
be a trade facilitation agreement of sorts, if you like.
Right. That's an important point, sir. Let me go back to Ambassador Meera Shankar. Ambassador Meera Shankar, do you feel that there is also a lesson now for India? We gave several unilateral concessions starting from the union budget by lowering tariffs on motorcycles and imported cars. We did away with the major Google tax as well. It seems that there is no acknowledgement from the United States for all those goodwill gestures that we made.
Well, I think you don't negotiate with the US on the basis of goodwill. It has to be hard bargaining and quid pro quo, and you dot the I's and cross the T's. Anything given unilaterally is pocketed. You think you'll get goodwill on the basis of it, it's pocketed and the goalpost is moved. So it's not, it's not something that you really should do while negotiating with the US, because they are very hard-headed about trade negotiations and very loyally and legal. So, you have to say, if, we open up this, you give us this, and you finalize the deal, and then it's, as I said, the I's have to be dotted and the T's crossed.
Right. Let me also ask you, Ambassador Sibal, about one important development that has taken place through the day, and that is with reference to Jane Street, a US-based company which has now been barred by the Securities and Exchange Board of India, India's market regulator, from trading in Indian markets. They've been called out for a fraud, and the SEBI, the regulator, wants to recover 4,800 crores from them. Now, this is a very strong investigation, a strong order against a US-based company. How do you think this could be seen at a time when we're negotiating a deal?
I think those who are behind this, Jane, whatever it is, will try and reach the White House, will knock on their doors and see if Trump can be, agitated on this issue, because he takes these things very personally. That just ahead of the deal, they're trying to twist our arms through this, our regulator, and impose. He was extremely angry with I think Britain or the European Union. Yes, one of these countries which imposed a digital tax on US firms, and Trump threatened all kinds of things in retaliation. So I think the fact is that I don't think the government could have told the SEBI not to do this at this point in time and wait for a few more days, or at least after July 9, to do this. But I suppose SEBI had very good reason to do that, and they have done it. And indirectly, it can go both ways. One, it can show that we are resolved to deal with US firms if they are violating our regulations, and that we're not going to be deterred by American threats against that. On the other hand, in terms of what Trump's temperament is and the manner he deals with these things, maybe it would have been advisable to have delayed it. But then I suppose there is no coordination on these matters between the government of India and SEBI.
Right. And the market regulator, of course, functions independently. And this must have been a fraud that they must be investigating for quite a bit of time, possibly a year or so. Thank you so much, Ambassador Sibal and Ambassador Meera Shankar, for joining us. It's always a pleasure having you here on Global Lens on CNBC-TV18. Moving on, China